It's Survivor Series in less than 9 hours. The last Big 4 pay-per-view of the year is in less than 9 hours from now. I feel so little motivation to even think about Survivor Series right now. It's incredible. But they've accomplished this on the back of some really bad booking and little to no conflict between the actual competitors who were supposed to face off against each other. Even if you just take the last 5 years, this year's Survivor Series has the worst build out of all of them. Which is saying something, because I think I'm speaking for a few people when I say that the Raw versus SmackDown theme does not feel important anymore. But contrary to popular belief, I do not actually subscribe to the theory that the formula itself is faulty. Rather, I think that the build has been extremely lazy. And some of the results that we want from Survivor Series have not been accomplished because of also COVID, because NXT, for example, is not part of Survivor Series this year. I wish it was, but it isn't. Because 2019 felt very fresh simply and only because of NXT. And NXT had a very, very good showing last year, which was the right booking decision. It's just that this year they're not going to feature because of probably precautionary reasons, and I will give the WWE credit for that. So, with that said, as for the actual event, I will wait to scrutinize every single match until after I have announced the card, at least the most recently updated card, as we know it. 6 matches have been announced, and they are as follows. Team Raw, comprising of AJ Styles, Keith Lee, Sheamus, Braun Strowman, and Riddle, will take on Team SmackDown. Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, King Corbin, Seth Rollins, and Otis, in a traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series match. Elimination match. Team Raw for the women is Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Lana, Lacey Evans, and Peyton Royce, who will challenge Team SmackDown, comprised of Bianca Belair, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Bayley, and Natalya. Raw's United States Champion Bobby Lashley will face the Intercontinental Champion from SmackDown, Sami Zayn. The New Day, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, the current Raw Tag Team Champions, will face the Street Profits, Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford, who are the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Asuka, Raw Women's Champion, will go against Sasha Banks, SmackDown Women's Champion. And in what will presumably be the main event of the evening, Drew McIntyre, your WWE Champion, will face off against Roman Reigns, the current Universal Champion, on SmackDown. Paul Heyman will most likely be by his side, and that is your card. On paper, I've got to say that's not a bad card. If someone just told me that this was going to be the card, I'd be fine with it. I'd be happy because we get, hopefully, a revitalized Drew McIntyre, which is the case. If that's also something that is really sad. Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns have faced off multiple times, and McIntyre lost every time before 2020. He was fed to Roman Reigns for no reason, and that is tragic now, because Drew McIntyre can't lose, but Roman really can't lose. And this is after the year that McIntyre has had. So it's really interesting to see how they book this match. But that uncertainty is not on the back of good booking. That is the biggest distinction between a well-booked show and a badly booked show. This is a very badly booked show. The card is great because of the competitors and their talents. But the story of every match does not deserve people wanting to tune in. There's a massive divide between the actual genuine conflict, which should be happening, or which should be the reason why I want to see the show, and why I'm wanting to see the show right now, which is simply because, yeah, the people are talented in the ring, so the matches are going to be fun. It's very little to do with story-driven narrative, and more to do with potential moments and the wrestling talents of the people involved. With that said, let's get to the individual matches. For people who don't know or are watching for the first time, the predictions work in this way. I give two kinds of predictions. One is what I hope to see happen, which is a personal fan booking of sorts, and the other is my official prediction, which I give from the perspective of practicality, what I think will happen, which is what counts. So far, I'm not doing bad. I have a 29 out of 41 record in my prediction, so I hope to keep that up. First off, we have New Day versus the Street Profits. Is it lost on anyone that just 5 weeks ago, each team had the other team's championship, and they simply exchanged it when they changed brands because of the WWE draft? Has anyone forgotten that? It's ridiculous because it's ridiculous because so easily this could have been New Day versus Street Profits, but they were the holders of the other brand's championship. And what's even more ridiculous is the exchange is the reason why Street Profits are Grand Slam Tag Team Champions. There was no match to make that happen for them. They did not have a hard-fought battle that they had to go through to become Grand Slam Champions. They became Grand Slam Champions because of a simple exchange necessitated by the WWE draft. Anyway, we were here to talk about the match. I'm sorry. So the match itself is going to be great. The four gentlemen involved are very talented in the ring. Montez Ford specifically so. All his matches are so fast-paced, and that frog splash is a thing of beauty every time. But I do hope that his intestines do not give in anytime soon because of the sheer elevation that he achieves every time he hits that move. I'm concerned for his long-term safety, long-term health. But anyway, it's a joy to watch, so what do I care? The match itself, the story has been non-existent, so I'm sad because there is no story to critique. They're just there, and the Street Profits seems like a little updated, a little more modern, a little louder version of the New Day, which is saying something because the New Day have not been the more reticent team in their entire 6-year run so far. As for the predictions, what do I think should happen? What do I think should happen? Just taking into account the fact that Big E is no longer part of the New Day technically because they're on different brands, I think Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods need to establish themselves as a duo a little more. They cannot ride completely off the coattails of them as a trio because that is no longer the case. The duo, the two of them are the champions. They cannot have Big E sub in and challenge for any tag team title, at least for the foreseeable future. So I think they need this win. So I would have them go over. But what do I think will happen? The official prediction, I think that the Street Profits will win. For the similar reasons, they're the more believable tag team right now, which is a strange thing to say considering that Kofi and Xavier have been a successful tag team for so long, and they've had a storied rivalry with the Usos in the past, so they are certainly one of the iconic tag teams probably of all time. But the Street Profits will, I think, pick up the win because they're younger, they need more momentum by their side, they need more notches on their belt to be considered a great team, and this victory will go a long way in doing that. Next up, we have the women's 5 versus 5 match, elimination match. What do I think should happen? The women's team is, on the SmackDown side, is simply much more talented, or is much more believable, is comprised of bigger stars, better workers in the ring. We have Bianca Belair, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Bayley, and Natalya. So going by sheer star power and achievement, accomplished stars, I think SmackDown should win. That's what I hope to see happen. I don't want Bayley to lose again so soon. I definitely don't want Bianca Belair to lose. Ruby Riott is climbing up the ranks slowly. Liv Morgan won that fatal four-way match, which she was not really the first choice in, but she became that after Chelsea Green injured her wrist. And Natalya is the dependable superstar with proven in-ring ability. So I don't want Team Raw to win, actually. if I could book this in a fantasy world, SmackDown would definitely win. There's no reason for Raw to win. You can have Nia Jax and Shayna protected somehow by DQ finishes, or they try to outdo Lana again, which they always do. So they work to the detriment of their own team, but they still have their air of invincibility as women's tag team champions. That's how I would book this match. But as for what I think will happen, it's very obvious. I think a lot of people have predicted this to come to fruition, which is because Lana has gone through a table. She's been put through a table by Nia Jax for 9 weeks in a row. The whole purpose of that was to build sympathy for Lana. So if you don't pay that off in some way, it would be for nothing. And even though WWE has been known to not pay things off so much, I don't think that they're going to completely forget about Lana being built up as a sympathetic figure. So that's going to be paid off by her being the sole survivor in the match, by taking down the last remaining SmackDown women's superstar by luck or by some hook or crook. So she's going to do it. My official prediction is that Lana wins the match for Team Raw. An undeserved victory, but they have to pay off the sympathy angle that they've been building up with Lana. Again, there's no real story here. The two teams do not hate each other. They don't have any real history against each other. They have not even mentioned the fact that Lana and Natalya used to be a team before the draft happened and Natalya went over to SmackDown. There's no conflict whatsoever. None of the teams have showed up on the other brand to create some anticipation, and that might be because of COVID. We're not sure. Drew McIntyre showed up on the other brand. Why not have one of the members of one team show up on the opposing brand once to cut a promo, to attack some member of the other team? None of that. Anyway, so that was the prediction. Then we go over to the men's 5 versus 5 traditional elimination match. What do I think should happen? Okay. There are 2 scenarios that can play out here, as far as I'm concerned. First is the men's SmackDown team should win as well. I'm hoping for a wipeout in terms of SmackDown beating Raw in both these matches. Why? Because the entire backstory of Team Raw has been how they cannot get along. How none of them can accept each other as team members. There's a clash of egos, there's indecision, there's lack of chemistry on their part. It's a mess. And no one accepts AJ Styles as the leader, even though he's often the voice of reason. If he actually went by talent, I think Team Raw beats Team SmackDown, at least on this occasion. They've got Braun Strowman, they've got Keith Lee, they've got, who else they got? AJ Styles, Riddle, who needs to be built up, and Braun Strowman. I might have mentioned him twice. Anyway, so it's a very accomplished team. I was forgetting Sheamus, of course. So this team has former world champions in it. So, as well. I mean, if SmackDown, you have Rollins, Otis, Jey Uso, Corbin, and Kevin Owens. You've got 2 world champions on SmackDown, being Rollins and Owens, and you've got 3 on Raw, being Sheamus, Braun Strowman, and AJ Styles. Not that that's a sticking point whatsoever, but as far as what I think should happen, like I said, SmackDown should win. I'd want Jey Uso to be the sole survivor, to keep his momentum going, which he's gained after the 2 matches with Roman Reigns, where he lost because of force. He was forced to give up because he wanted to protect Jimmy in the second case. So it's an interesting clash. That's what I think should happen. As for what I think will happen, why do you think Raw is being booked as a team that cannot get along? They will have the unlikely chemistry which will strike because they want brand supremacy of some sort, and Raw is going to win the men's 5 versus 5 match. That's what I think will happen officially. Next match, Bobby Lashley, the U.S. champion, taking on Sami Zayn, the Intercontinental champion. What do I think should happen? Bobby Lashley should win. Because he can't lose. He simply can't lose. He has been on a very impressive tear through the entire mid-card of Raw, and he should keep that going. He's in a very good position to challenge for the WWE Championship early next year, or maybe even after that. Who knows? But he cannot lose. He should not lose. There's no reason for him to lose. So, I don't want him to lose. As for what I think will happen, the official prediction, I'm still sticking with Bobby. I don't want Bobby Lashley to lose. Another interesting, or rather, something important to keep in mind for this match is, of course, that Sami Zayn, even though he's being treated as a joke, his mic skills have really shown through during this unimpressive but still present stretch of his career. He was booked as a very smart heel during that triple threat ladder match featuring Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles. And he's very smart. And he always attracts attention when he's speaking, which is rare for him as far as I'm concerned. He was never this interesting as a speaker. But that does not get him enough points to warrant victory in my eyes, and I don't think that'll happen either. So my official prediction is Bobby Lashley. The Women's Championship, the match featuring the Women's Champions, Asuka and Sasha Banks. Okay, so what do I think should happen? This is something that won't make a ton of sense, but it would make a ton of sense if you look at it from a long-term booking perspective. Bianca Belair has to be in the conversation for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It would be too easy for Carmella to cost Sasha the match. And I don't want to see that happen again, because for 3 weeks consecutively, Carmella has attacked Sasha Banks from behind. And it is too easy to predict that that would happen as well. I want Bianca Belair to attack Sasha behind the referee's back and then hand a chair to Asuka, throw a chair in Asuka's hand, and make it look like Asuka attacked Sasha. So Asuka will be disqualified, handing SmackDown the victory. So Bianca Belair attacks Sasha, but does not cost SmackDown the victory. Actually gets the victory to SmackDown by disqualification, by tricking the referee into believing that Asuka had attacked Sasha with a chair. What does this do? This creates a interesting three-way feud brewing between Sasha Banks, Carmella, and Bianca Belair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. That's what I want to see happen. What do I think will happen? Carmella's going to get involved, and she's going to cost Sasha the victory. Or rather, she's going to hand SmackDown the victory because she's going to attack Sasha, but by disqualification, SmackDown picks up the victory. No clean finish here. I don't think there's a clean finish that's gonna happen. It's just it's a no-win situation. Why do you have any of your champions in a losing position to begin with? Does not make sense. So, I do think officially what's gonna happen is that Carmella is gonna attack Sasha. Asuka wins by disqualification. Raw gets the win by disqualification. Now, the main event. Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. Oh my god. Alright. This match has 1 week of build behind it. Just 1 week. It was supposed to be Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre, but McIntyre won his championship back. I actually understood that decision, even though it's a little bit of a strange reason for that to have happened. I'm not sure how you can justify that quick a transition in the main event match. And why are these men feuding? They have history, which is lucky, but they have a very one-sided history, and it's not as if history won't repeat itself necessarily. Reigns cannot lose, even more than before, when Reigns was kicking McIntyre all over the curb. Even more than then, Reigns can't lose. He's on the most dominant stretch of his career, the most interesting stretch of his career. The Tribal Chief gimmick suits him perfectly. He's a very low-key, confident, overconfident as well, probably you can say it, but he is very, very determined, very self-aware, aware, and he seems to be very comfortable in his current role. Very, very organic is his performance. Became Yoda for a second there. Anyway, so Reigns can't lose. McIntyre shouldn't lose either. They've booked themselves into a corner just like they were booking themselves into a corner with Orton. Orton could have actually put Reigns over as he has done in the past. I think SummerSlam 2014. But McIntyre just can't. So there's reason to believe more than all the other matches on the card combined. There's reason to believe that the main event will have a disqualification finish or distraction causing the finish. The room for interference is the highest in this match. You've got The Fiend lurking, you've got Miz lurking, you potentially have Daniel Bryan lurking to cause some grief to Roman Reigns because of Daniel Bryan's program with Jey Uso. So all these moving factors. You've got Randy Orton. Who could intervene and attack Drew McIntyre as well. So all of these factors make it really difficult to predict what will happen here. On a side note, Randy Orton could attack Sheamus before the Raw 5 vs. SmackDown men's elimination match, taking Sheamus' place, and then I could see Raw winning the match as well. But that's on a side note. Coming back to the main event, what do I think will happen? Or rather, first with what I think should happen. A double countout. A double countout for both, with them starting a brawl, but then other superstars, the main event caliber superstars from both brands, interfere. So you have Jey Uso coming out to fight for Roman, and then you have Miz coming out to attack Drew, The Fiend showing up and neutralizing everybody to close out the show. And maybe you have Orton as well running interference, and The Fiend neutralizes Orton so as to continue their program. Miz to show that he's an ever-present threat to both champions. That's a key piece of information that is not being presented as fact or being given enough exposure. Miz could actually, theoretically, cash in on Roman Reigns as well. It shouldn't happen anytime soon, but that's a possibility, and people don't talk about it enough. So Miz should be there. McIntyre's already there. You have The Fiend. You have Jey Uso running interference for Roman Reigns in case the match is spoiled, which it probably will be. So that's what I want to see happen. A double count out and then chaos. And in the end, you have both champions, McIntyre and Roman Reigns, being kept apart. That would be how I close out the show. Or you have The Fiend standing tall after neutralizing everybody in the main event of the entire company. That would be a good finish too. What do I think will happen? Roman Reigns, either by DQ or by legitimately causing a pinfall loss for Drew McIntyre. You could have Drew McIntyre being distracted by maybe Orton's entrance or The Fiend's entrance being teased, or you might have Miz's entrance being teased, and then Reigns takes advantage. 2 spears, 1, 2, 3. That could be a possibility. Or you have Reigns win by disqualification when Reigns is somehow attacked by anybody. It could be anybody. Orton for a match that he was supposed to have but he didn't. He could attack Reigns and then attack McIntyre. Because if you remember, right before he lost the championship, Orton was not being a cowardly champion. Orton was being booked as a very strong heel champion, which is rare, which was confusing as well. But that could be a case. Under no circumstances do I think that McIntyre wins this match, even by disqualification. Which is strange, because if you look at the situation, McIntyre has more threats looming currently. It would make sense for them to attack McIntyre, and that does hand the victory to Reigns by disqualification. But I don't think they want any losses to show up on Reigns' resume during this current run that he's on, the Tribal Chief run. So I don't think under any circumstances Reigns gets the loss. Even disqualification, nothing. It's Reigns is going to win. That's my official prediction. Even though a double countout is what I want to see happen. To round up every prediction that I've made, practical one. The fan fiction one, you already know because I already talked about them. Just to recap my official predictions. The Street Profits to go over New Day. Raw winning the men's 5 versus 5 match. Raw winning the women's match as well. Bobby Lashley winning against Sami Zayn. Asuka winning against Sasha by some shenanigans. And Reigns by some shenanigans. There you have it. Those are all my predictions. There are so many ways to make this show better. And not even difficult ones. Which makes this entire build a little underwhelming, but doesn't matter. I'll still watch, and I will enjoy the in-ring action, and hopefully they have some surprises for all of us involved. And you know the funny thing that I have not even mentioned, that deserves a special mention, of course. This event is entirely booked around Undertaker's 30-year anniversary with the company. So, why do people have these things on pay-per-view? Survivor Series has been synonymous with Randy Orton's career. Well, yes, but Undertaker's career as well. Undertaker debuted at Survivor Series 1990. This entire edition of Survivor Series, underwhelming as it might be, is also being marketed as the final farewell of The Undertaker. Interesting to note, there are no live fans. Interesting to note, there is no match that The Undertaker is scheduled to face off in or compete in. This is not his final farewell. This just can't be. And WWE has done this so many times. Undertaker's farewell have been many. Him folding his coat and gloves after losing to Reigns. I hate that decision. But after his loss to Reigns at WrestleMania, Undertaker walked out into the sunset, came back. Okay. And then after AJ Styles left for good, I was coming back for the final farewell. It just can't be. Undertaker will take part in a match in front of live fans again at WrestleMania, one-on-one. He should win, and then he should actually go into the sunset. If that doesn't happen next year, then I can see that he never competes in the ring again. He shouldn't compete in the ring again, actually, because he's done enough. His body probably can't take it. Even if it can, it has to be against the right person, and AJ Styles was that right person. As for my prediction as to what's going to happen with the segment in which Undertaker appears, The Fiend, most likely. That's going to be the final feud for The Undertaker. I can see that happening. So officially that's what I predict, even though I hope against it. Because Undertaker shouldn't lose again. He should be the one exception to the long accepted tradition of lose on your way out. Because you already cost him the streak for no reason, giving it to a person who did not need it, Brock Lesnar. So Undertaker should be winning on his way out. He should not lose. If he's going to put anybody over, that putting over can be done by simply that person, either be it The Fiend or, as it's been also slightly rumored, Karrion Kross. Whoever appears, Undertaker puts them over by simply being the victim of an attack, a successful attack. Undertaker's laid out. Then you have weeks of narrative of what happened to The Undertaker. He's fine. He's fine and he's retired. But I know that's not going to happen. Undertaker will have a match. Anyway, it is the show dedicated to the dead man and his final farewell. Whether that's legitimate or not is immaterial. Any show which is based around The Undertaker, I'll watch it for sure. The build to Survivor Series is crap, but I will watch. And I hope to be pleasantly surprised. And I wish the same for all of you watching. Until next time, this is Duncan Lievi.